We are coming off of one of the more delightful PGA events that I've seen in quite some time. It was fun to follow. It was fun to track all the drama. Fun to see the results of Justin Thomas winning the PGA Championship, and hopefully a profitable one for you as well. And spinning it forward now to the Charles Schwab Challenge, a pretty good field once again with a lot of guys who were in contention this past week, here again this week, but a very different course for this week. But we had last week. We're going to break down what that means for PGA, DFS, our top golfers in each salary tier, and get you set for the Charles Schwab Challenge in DFS. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor of numberFire.com. And Brandon, Justin Thomas winning the PGA Championship. It's a bummer that some of our favorites like Mito Pereira and Will Zalatoris had to have some bumps to let JT get the win, but I believe he was a win pick for you. He was someone I had a lot of DFS exposure to, so great tournament despite some of our favorites faltering. How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, in a major, some guys got to fall, so some others can rise. You know, it's just the way of the world.
Unless it's the Masters and it's Scotty Scheffler blowing the doors off everybody else.
Yeah, I mentioned this to you, but I always, I plan some schedules, some vacations around majors, and I'm a very optimistic man usually, as you know.
The first word that comes to mind: chipper and optimistic. Those are the first two.
So, I'm usually thinking like I can't miss any majors, but frankly, a lot of the majors tend to be a little underwhelming. Mm-hmm. We were heading for that into Sunday, and I always feel bad. Like with Scheffler at the Masters, it's like
you root against them so that you can get a competitive show.
For this to get interesting, I need this guy to kind of struggle. For my JT win recommendations and picks to work out, I needed Mito to kind of just fall off the earth, and he kind of did that, and I feel awful, but we can feel good for JT because he played some great golf, got the bad end of the tee sheet this week, and went out and got it done anyway.
Yeah, 67 on Friday for him with the bad weather situation that he had. And it was fun because I turned it on expecting Rory to be the guy, because Rory had, before I was able to actually tune in, had been tearing it up. And I was like, okay, cool. I can watch Rory tear it up a bit. And I think because Rory had done so well, and because we've seen Rory make runs like that on Sundays before, the broadcast seemed fixated on Rory and kind of let JT slip through the cracks a bit for a while. So he's like, oh, this kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere that he's all of a sudden surging, because they're showing every Rory shot, but you didn't see a lot of JT. But it was fun to tune in and watch just peak golf, watching these guys hitting disgustingly difficult shots. You can just kind of appreciate the degree of difficulty. And I thought it was a delight to watch. Doesn't hurt that I got to cheer on some good DFS lineups along the way, but I thought it was just honestly perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything more out of that whole event.
Now we just got to get you to watch more events with me.
I'm usually busy, man. I got stuff going. I'm very busy on Thursdays, doing not a whole lot. So gotta keep to that schedule for sure. But maybe I'll tune in this week for the Charles Schwab Challenge. They're at Colonial Country Club for this week. It is 7,209 yards. It is a par 70. So par 70, once again, very different distance for this week. There are 120 golfers in the field for this week, and the top 65 plus ties will make the cut after the first two rounds. Brandon, Colonial is a place we know a whole lot about. They've been coming here for decades upon decades upon decades. We know what to expect here. So tell us, what should we expect for this week?
Well, some good golf. I think first and foremost, we have a good field, and I love that. Love to see that. Love a good 120 golfer field. Just makes it a little bit simpler to dig through everything. Also, because of the way that FanDuel salaries fall, you kind of get some golfers bumped down because you can't cluster everyone up at the top. So get some value on some good names this week. But as far as Colonial goes, yeah, it's despite like a short to average overall length, it's not an easy course, that's for sure. Winning scores have been, double digit under par, 14, 15, 13, 20, 10 under have been the past 5 winning scores, but cut lines basically generally over par. And so that's kind of the test that we're getting this week. It's going to be not as hard as the PGA, obviously, but definitely not some sort of birdie fest where I don't like the birdie fest where if you put it to 12 feet, it's not good enough. Like that's not fun to me. I think a lot of people like that, but definitely not for me. One of the reasons that this is not necessarily as easy of a scoring course is that the par fives play pretty tough. They've ranked top 6 in difficulty in each of the past 3 years compared to other PGA Tour courses, according to Data Golf's course table tool. And it's kind of difficult to gain strokes off the tee. It's a narrow setup. Accuracy sort of wins out off the tee. And so we're looking more for precision off the tee than distance. We need some iron play to hit these greens. And then around the green play was sort of all the rage last week. It ended up mattering pretty significantly more than usual for Southern Hills, which is kind of what we expected because of the way that the greens were set up. This week, not really the case. It's one of the weaker correlations with total strokes gained and strokes gained around the green that we get on the PGA Tour. So we're kind of downplaying distance, downplaying around the green, downplaying distance a little bit because we want accuracy. So when we're talking accuracy, irons, maybe some putting, it's a Victor Hovland setup if I've ever heard one.
And I think the tough thing here is that we are downplaying a lot of things. And so it's tough to know like what to emphasize. Are you basically just selling out for like what you said, like looking for good approach players? Is it just kind of zeroing in on that for the most part this week?
So I wanted so my key stats are in order are strokes gained approach. I have strokes gained off the tee with an emphasis on driving accuracy. I don't just want to disregard strokes gained off the tee and driving distance and look at the most accurate golfers. We kind of say this a lot, and I guess coincidentally here, it might be irony. That's a little too early in the morning for me to decide which one it is. But when we talk about strokes,
ironic.
When we talk about strokes gained off or strokes gained around the green mattering, you don't just rank the field by strokes gained around the green. It's such a small portion of golf, even if it's elevated. Same thing with approach. Or wow, I'm having a rough one. Not enough coffee yet. Same with driving accuracy. You don't just rank the field by driving accuracy because there's a lot more that goes into it than just hitting fairways. But that said, if you're looking for golfers who maybe have some lower strokes gained off the tee numbers but are accurate, this is the kind of week where they're actually going to probably gain some strokes or stay relevant. So I'm not selling out for any one thing aside from approach, which I always sell out for. It's like 35 to 40% of what I'm looking for in a given week. But yeah, it's more a matter of, can you drive it well? However you do that, that keeps those more accurate hitters in play. Can you hit these greens? And honestly, like if you have to get up and down, you need to be able to get up and down anywhere. But that's not really the key for this week.
And I think the other reason to not, like I don't know the last time I put like fairways gained on my actual like stats list. I'm not sure the last time that happened because distance does still help here. It's not like a prerequisite maybe, but like it doesn't hurt by any means. Like go back to 2020. Berger, he's a good guy who benefits from accuracy. Morikawa, same thing, but Bryson was up there. He contended that week. You had Jason Kokrak, who is not super accurate that year. Xander he's not like intentionally inaccurate. Like he can be accurate when he needs to be. So maybe he's not like the best example of that, but like he was up there as well. Like you have Cam Champ finished pretty well that year too. Same thing for Patrick Rogers. So distance, although it's not a requirement, doesn't hurt, which I think is another reason to like not look at just fairways gained as a reason to look at stuff. So I've got good drives gained on my list for this week, in part because of that, because I kind of want to look for like I don't think he's in the field, but like the Xander types who can like put it in a good spot when they need to. Like, I think to me, that's the most valuable thing rather than guys who can bomb it.
You know who's a Xander type off the tee who maybe would benefit from a course where you don't need to have great wedge play?
Morikawa?
Victor Hovland.
Morikawa would too.
No, they're similar in that regard,
Yeah.
but it's more like I compare Morikawa, or I compare Hovland more to Xander because Morikawa isn't as long as Hovland, and Hovland sort of has that closer comp.
Can I just put Hovland down as a win pick for you now and just save the trouble later?
Yeah, I'm recommending him everywhere. I already bet him straight away. Morikawa was close, but I'm going with Hovland. Feels like a Hovland week.
We're going to go through Morikawa and talk about course history here in just 1 second. But first, the NBA playoffs are heating up, and you can make every game feel like Game 7 on FanDuel Sportsbook, an official partner of the NBA. Throughout the playoffs, all customers can place a no-sweat same-game parlay each week. You'll get $20 in free bets if you don't win. FanDuel has so many ways to play, and best of all, when you do win, you'll get paid faster than a fast break. Either way, you'll get up to $20 in free bets if your same-game parlay during the playoffs doesn't win. FanDuel Sportsbook, an official partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus in select states. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max free bet $20 per week. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. In Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700, or in West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Let's dive in to past history here and break down. I put the wrong label up. If you're watching YouTube, I put the current form section up. Oh, well, let's go talk about course history here. Accolonio and breakdown Colin Morikawa, who has nothing to say about current form, obviously, as we couldn't have just rolled that over anyway. Morikawa, talk about the course vid here. What do you see with Morikawa, what he's done at Colonial, and how that relates to this week specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, glad you called attention to that. It's an integrity move. Because I notice.
I got to keep in mind that not everyone is watching on YouTube and they have to know when I mess up. You gotta own it.
Well, at least you could mix up every single word you've said so far, like I have. So you can try that next.
We're both in great current form. That's why I put it up. We're just in great form right now.
I took some NyQuil last night, so I slept through the night for once, and I think maybe that's still in the system. So maybe that's what's going on here. But yeah, Colin Morikawa. You sort of joke that he doesn't have any current form to talk about. Obviously that's a joke, but coming off a 55th,
it was sort of was right.
He's toast. Jim's calling it.
Hey, he's washed. He's past his prime. Morikawa might as well start planning out his Champions Tour schedule, stuff like that in 25 or whatever years. Just mail it in now, bud.
Yeah, well, I mean that's I know that's a joke, but it's a good reminder that whenever you see a brief cold streak for a golfer, it's either just a matter of time before it comes back or he's toast. And I don't think we're gonna sit here and say that Colin Morikawa.
No, give us a hot take. Dude, say it. Colin Morikawa is done.
You said that, man. I would never. But yeah, it's 55th at the PGA Championship. Obviously, a disappointment there. 26th at the Heritage, 5th at the Masters, which of course doesn't factor in. He's terrible now. 9th at Match Play, 68th at Valspar, cut at the Players, 2nd at Genesis. So kind of a lot of disappointments. In two of those three big events, the PGA, the Players, a 55th and a missed cut. It's not what you want to see, but you mentioned that we have a lot of years of experience at Colonial, and so we have tons of options we could pick from where we're talking about guys who've just been here year after year after year. But I don't want to knock Morikawa just because he has 2 starts here because they've been really good. Morikawa runner-up in 2020, losing to Daniel Berger in a playoff. T14 last year at this course. Actually would be interested to hear because people sort of don't like Daniel Berger as a dog, like the closer-ness. But Colin Morikawa is he gets a lot of that because he's won some majors. So
I just want to hear you say "as a dog" more often. Dog, as a dog, doesn't have that dog mentality.
Yeah, I actually fired off some tweets this week for the PGA because I was just a little more in tune. And there was a report that Mito Pereira only got 9.5 hours of sleep Friday into Saturday, and he said he usually sleeps 11 hours a night, and dogs sleep 10 to 12 hours per 24 hours. So I said that he had that dog in him because I thought that maybe that was his dog, man.
Speaking of sleeping,
see, just like Mito.
Yeah, I'm sure this is not jarring at all for anyone watching YouTube as I pull my camera off the tripod to show Rosa sleeping.
This is either this is our worst podcast we've probably
let's just embrace it. Like, let's just lean into it. It's gonna be bad. I'm gonna take my camera off the tripod and show my dog who is asleep.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought our PGA show last week was really good. So maybe we get a little bit of leeway here. But yeah, Morikawa again. The recent results not particularly good. The tee to green numbers though last week were good. Didn't putt well, which is always something that you have to worry about with Collin Morikawa. But it's a good fit, right? We're talking about basically accuracy off the tee. He has that. We're looking for irons at his peak or probably even at his floor. Nobody has better irons than Collin Morikawa. We can downplay the chipping a little bit. It's a matter of whether he can sort of putt, but he's shown the ability to figure out this course and play well. And so I don't really think that what Collin Morikawa has done the past 2 years leading into this event is no longer there for Collin Morikawa. So I think he's a great play. And we'll talk more about the top of the field, but we have some big names in it. Collin Morikawa is a part of that. But I think that with the lack of like recent standout performances, he might get a little bit disrespected here. So I like Morikawa a lot. Any thoughts on you, or do you want to talk about your guy and then maybe we talk about the top of the field?
Briefly on Morikawa, like the reason you would use Morikawa is for the irons. The irons have still been very good. There's nothing for me to like discount with him. I think he's great. So I'm on board with Morikawa. The question is, do I like him more than Jordan Spieth? Because Colonial is a lot like Augusta for Jordan Spieth, where no matter what his form is, he's going to do well at this course. Spieth has played Colonial 9 times. He has finished outside the top 10 twice in that span, in 9 events across all forms, no matter what it may be. He's going to be top 10 here. He has more top 2 finishes, which is 4, than he does finishes of 10th or worse, which is 3, because he had one that was exactly 10th. Last year, when Spieth's form was starting to dip a little bit, he finished runner-up here. That was largely fueled by the putter, but he's been lights out on the green here for a span of 9 years now. So hard to call it fluky when that's the case. I'm not typically a big course history guy, but Spieth has been so good here that it's kind of hard for me to deny it. And his form has been fine recently, obviously with a win and a runner-up recently. So I actually am going to bump up Spieth to account for this. The question is whether it's enough to make him above Morikawa, above Hovland, above JT, above Scheffler at 11-4. So talk to me about Spieth, talk to me about this upper range and how you're viewing things for this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Fort Worth. Obviously, Spieth's from Dallas. Scheffler lives in Dallas. Will Zalatoris lives somewhere in Texas. Wikipedia says Plano. So we're going to get a lot of those narratives this week. And I think nobody more than Spieth would benefit from that because he has the course history to back that up. So I think that I have nothing wrong with Jordan Spieth from a process standpoint. But if I can pivot from Jordan Spieth, and I feel like I can, I'm into that. Surprisingly, believe it or not, Collin Morikawa, better putter long-term than Jordan Spieth right now. Better expected putting splits than Jordan Spieth right now. Victor Hovland also a much better expected putter than Jordan Spieth right now. So if I can get the tee to green game from either Morikawa or Hovland compared to Spieth with better reason to believe in the putting, I'll go that route and just hope that maybe Spieth stumbles a little bit this week. And of course, I've just reached the point with Jordan Spieth where if I'm not on him and he wins, I'm okay with that because he's just sort of electric to watch because it's so chaotic all the time.
Well, that's like where I'm typically at with Spieth, but I think I'm more into him this week than I ever really am. Like I'm typically on board with you where if he wins, it's fine. It's like, it'll burn me for that week for DFS, but I don't really care too much. And I would almost always be on that same level, but like I've seen enough with his form and like the history is so good that it's really hard to deny, even though he's not a course fit. Like we want guys who place it well, and that's not his forte, but like, he's just proven it for so long. Like this is very counter to the way I typically play things. But like, I feel like I'm being bullheaded if I say, no, I'm going to overlook this guy's 9 events of amazing course history and overlook what he's done recently and not use him. So like, if I'm not accounting for roster rates or things like that, I probably do go Spieth over Morikawa personally. Like that could be a pretty big mistake. But like,
no, I don't think it'd be.
I think that's where I wind up.
I don't think it'd be a big mistake. We've seen Spieth get bet down. Morikawa and Hovland have lengthened, very minor lengthening there. But I think that in a vacuum, sure, I'll take Spieth. In tournaments, even maybe in head-to-heads, where I think variance still plays a large role, I would go with either of the other two. Mm-hmm. So. I think I just got to put Spieth. This is just like last week when it's like I'm not against Jordan Spieth. It's just that I think there are other better process plays.
You want to do a Spieth Morikawa bet?
I'll do it, but I think that my hesitance shows that I really am not low on Spieth. I'm just trying to be streets ahead here and not necessarily chase the chalk.
Okay, so let's move down to other golfers who have had noteworthy form here at Colonial. Kevin Kisner checking in $8,800. What are you seeing with him here in the past?
Yeah, former winner. And he's just a guy that we don't talk about often unless it's the right course fit. And it has been historically for Kisner. I don't really feel bad about saying like that. Not every course fits him well because he said that in the past. He sort of says like he doesn't think he can win at certain courses, but at Colonial he has one. He has 3 top 10 finishes, 6 made cuts, and 8 starts. That's pretty solid for someone who is short off the tee. He is entering with 3 straight missed cuts. He missed at Heritage, Byron Nelson, in the PGA Championship. And if you look at Kisner, we talk about this a lot with like Bubba Watson or Brooks, where like certain courses really fit them, or maybe not Brooks anymore at majors, but like maybe I don't want Brooks to come at me.
Did you see any shots of him without his hat on this week? Because it looked like he might have dyed his hair back.
I think it is just grown out, okay. Like he's got like the tips still that are like a little bit blonde. That's kind of what.
So we're like a month out from being all in on Brooks Koepka, or I am at least.
Yeah. Okay. The U.S. Open.
The heritage remains. I get it.
Yeah. But like, with Kisner, his stats aren't going to look great if he's playing courses that are like too long for him or, so I try to be a little bit lenient whenever we get to courses where it finally is a good setup, because it's not like these guys are bad golfers. They're just playing a lot of courses that they're not going to post good stats on. So I'm not out on Kisner, but I do think that we have enough value plays where I wouldn't necessarily put him as like a priority. Anything for you for Kisner that jumps out?
Well, that's where I'm at too, because like for a lot of guys this week, if they are just guys who don't really gain off the tee, then I'm like, whatever, it's fine. I think they get a bump out this week. But Kisner, outside of a couple spikes, hasn't really been there elsewhere either. Like the short game has still been fine, but like his irons haven't been necessarily totally on either. So not really getting that. I do get a bump up for the course fit, but I think, like you said, there are some other guys in the 8,000 range who I like a bit more, specifically a couple who I think are really undersalaried, and I do like a lot. So Chris Kirk. Yeah. I think Sebastian Munoz is undersalaried a bit too. And I like their fit as well. So I probably won't be going there with Kisner personally, but I might go there with Jason Kokrak. Let's talk about him now. The long-term history for Kokrak at Colonial, not good, but the recent stuff sick. In the past 2 events here, Kokrak has finished 3rd and 1st respectively. As his form gets better, so does his form here. Weird how that works. And Kokrak has putted well in that time, but Kokrak is now 3rd in the field in bentgrass putting across the past 50 rounds, according to Fantasy National. The ball striking hasn't been quite as good, specifically on approach. We haven't seen Kokrak gain more than 2.2 on approach since he won the Houston Open back in November. Kokrak has still finished fine in that time, thanks to the putter being good and occasionally the driver. And his salary is 96. So I do like Kokrak. I think that the ball striking, although it hasn't been great, has not been bad. The putting's been weirdly good. He's got some good course history here recently. So where are you at in Kokrak as he tries to pull a KH Lee and defend that title?
I'm wondering if like Kokrak just has been getting into like putting competitions and like with the like just kind of going into throwing down all the chips with this pocket queens, pocket kings, aces. Pocket aces. Yeah. Maybe that's what's like led to the putting being better. But I started pulling spike weeks. We talk about spike weeks. We never really defined that too well. But I pulled spike weeks now from my data, which is whenever a golfer has an 85th percentile, give or take, adjusted tee to green week or putting week. And so if it's about 85th percentile, you'd expect like the average golfer to get there about 15% of the time. If you look at a field like this, it's closer to about 20%. So if I elevate that a little bit more and look at guys who have 25% of their past year events with a spike week and tee to green and putting, so like multiple paths to sort of some upside, Kokrak's one of the 12 who fit that. That's a pretty short list. It's a pretty strong list, as you would expect. Some other surprising names, maybe Ian Poulter, Kevin Na, Webb Simpson, Abe Ancer, Billy Horschel. These guys like can sort of have low end, solid tee to green weeks, but then they sort of get there with the putting. But yeah, Kokrak I think really fits from an upside standpoint. So nothing against him this week. Just maybe not my favorite play in the mid 9,000 range. So I think the more that I look at this field, we have Victor Hovland at a good salary for me. Sam Burns seems really undersalaried. Mm-hmm. We have some undersalaried golfers with Chris Kirk, Sebastian Munoz, primarily. I think we can go pretty balanced. So the 9,000 range does stand out. I don't know where I'd rank Kokrak, but he's definitely on the radar.
I would say he's probably not first for me either, but he's going to be in the rotation, especially if I'm here enough, which I think I will be too. He'll be in that rotation for sure. I feel good enough about him for that. And I don't really, when I rank him not at the top of this tier, it's not due to him. It's because, are you talking about Tom Hoagy? Is he your favorite guy in this range, or who do you like most in the mid 9,000 range?
I don't know if I'm talking about him specifically, but
no, but like when you said Kokrak's not your favorite, is there someone you had in mind specifically?
Oh, probably Mav McNeely.
Oh, okay, cool. You don't have to talk me into Mav McNeely. Never will have to be the case, but I think that Hoagie's up there for me. I like Kokrak. McNeely's obviously good always.
With Kevin Na, Harold Varner, McNeely, Hoagy, Brian Harmon, all right around there.
All fine plays. Good. It's a good range.
Boy, if you told me like maybe last year, like Bryson and Patrick Reed would be 9,400 in this field, and you wouldn't necessarily be like, was this a mistake? But
things have changed. That is for sure. Okay, let's dive into current form and talk about golfers who are golfing well recently. And let's talk about Max Homa. Homa is $10,800, which may seem high, but he's there for a reason, and he kind of earns that salary. So talk me through Max Homa and why he deserves to be as high salaried as he is.
Yeah, Twitter legend Max Homa put forth his first really strong outing in a major last week. He finished 13th at the PGA Championship. He gained 7.4 strokes tee to green. He also put up 7.4 strokes tee to green at the Wells Fargo, which he won. Homa has now gained at least 4.3 strokes tee to green in 6 straight measured events. Right? He wouldn't have got there with the Masters, but it's I don't know if those are official ShotLink data numbers so we're talking just the measured events. That's 6 straight. And that is a trend according to some research that I did. this past week on numberFire.com, which you can check out if you're looking for stabilization rate info on strokes gained data. But it doesn't mean he's going to play at that level forever, be that elite, but that's a great sign to do it that consistently. It's a good signal. We know that the tee to green data should be good for Homa because that's what his strength really is. And he now has 7 top 10 finishes and 9 starts in 2022. That is why his salary is $10,800. I don't think he'll get a whole lot of action this week because that's a high salary. It's, again, we got Sam Burns at 10-2. We got some other big names just below Homa with, depending on how you view him now, Daniel Berger, Tony Finau, Billy Horschel still a strong name there. So I think Homa is pretty much a lock to be an easy pivot because of the salary. I'm not out on him, but I can't really recommend him as a priority play. So any thoughts on Homa for you?
Yeah, I think that Homa, I think he deserves his salary, deserves where he is. I just wouldn't put him first in that range, I guess.
Right.
Which is it lends itself to what you're saying, where people will probably gloss over him.
How many people not thinking purely about game theory are playing Max Homa over Will Zalatoris for an extra 300? Everyone's going to go find, if they can, they're going to play Zalatoris.
Yeah. So. Right. I agree.
But Homa's salary is deserved.
Correct. And I think that's worth noting too.
Yeah.
It's not oh, no, he shouldn't be up here. He should. He's 5th in true strokes gained the past 6 months. That's insane. Despite being Hovland-esque around the green, he's still up there. And I think that's noteworthy. It's not enough where I'd take him over those guys, but hey, good for you, Max Homa. I think he earned it.
I think this is on the No Laying Up podcast because he's close with those guys. I think he texted them last week before the PGA and said he finally learned how to chip. So
it's good. Seems good. Like a multi-time winner on the PGA Tour learned how to chip. Seems good.
Well, hey, Victor Hovland flat out said he sucks at chipping, and he still sucks at it.
Yeah. I'm glad they're aware. That's always reassuring. I feel bad that they're aware of it, which means they probably feel bad about it, but whatever. At least they're working on it. Let's talk here about Tommy Fleetwood. You talked about him a couple weeks ago, but I think he's worth revisiting here with his salary at $9,800 because Fleetwood closed out strong at the PGA Championship. He did rally to finish 5th thanks to some really sick shots. The one area where Fleetwood didn't gain at least 2.6 strokes is off the tee, but that's not a big area of emphasis for this week. Fleetwood has now finished inside the top 10 to his past 4 events, and he's been outside the top 25 just 5 times in 12 events since January 1st. Fleetwood is 11th in true strokes gained the past 6 months. He is in the mid-range from a salary perspective at $9,800. You're not typically in on Fleetwood because I think you think that he is more popular than he should be typically. Are you in on Fleetwood for this week now?
I probably should be. So he's the same salary as Kevin Na, but their win odds are pretty disparate. Would that be? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have to look that one up. But yeah, Fleetwood 32-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Kevin Na 44-1. Kevin Na, of course, past winner here. The ball striking definitely does favor Fleetwood, even though the reason I don't like Fleetwood is because he gets this perception of being a really great ball striker, and he hasn't been. He's still not he's 72nd percentile over the past year for me, with not 53rd percentile, but the short game does favor. Actually, it's about equal. So I probably should like Fleetwood more than I do. So that's a good call out.
So we talked about Kokrak, all these guys in the mid-range. HV3 is there, Hoagie's there, Harmon's there, all these guys, McNeely at 97, and Fleetwood's just $100 above them. Do you view that as being a situation where you'd want to find the money to get to Fleetwood, or would you rather take the discount and go with the McNeelys, the Kokraks, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so as a recent Tommy Fleetwood super fan just now, I haven't thought about it too much. I would probably lean. Boy, it's so tough whenever you have a perception, and then you see Maverick McNeely at 75-1 and Tommy Fleetwood at 32-1.
Right.
You're like, am I being silly here just like to stick to McNeely? I still might lean Mav, but Fleetwood's in that conversation for number 2 behind McNeely.
I put Fleetwood above McNeely, and I put him above Na too. I think that Na is a very good option this week. Maybe like, I wish he were like 93 because I just use Kevin Na in every lineup. 98's a bit of a different discussion, but I do like him a lot this week. I just prefer Fleetwood over him for this week for me. Let's move down to KH Lee. We talked about him in the course history section leading to the Byron Nelson, and he won it. We were skeptical of him at that time, but now he's got a win in his back pocket. $8,400. What are you seeing with KH Lee recently?
Yeah, two-time AT&T Byron Nelson winner, Kyung-Hoon Lee. He won after being 25th at the Wells Fargo, followed up his win with a 41st at the PGA Championship, which should carry a lot of weight. So basically, we can kind of look at this like if those were all just 3 generic PGA Tour events, basically like 25th, first, 25th, something like that. And at a salary of $8,400, that would draw our attention. His only positive putting surface is on bent grass, according to Fantasy National. If you look at all the events in 2022, we see a 55th at the Players and really good other overall form outside of a 3-week span where he just didn't sort of have it. But he's accurate off the tee. He's a plus in all the strokes gain categories overall. Not necessarily, he's sort of that balanced golfer that we tend to like a lot. I think like with Fleetwood, whenever I dug into KH Lee's current form a little bit more, I think he's toward the top of the value list this week. So are you seeing enough, or is it too recent to want to buy in?
I don't mind buying into recent stuff. I think it's more so like I don't mind the 8,000 range. That's kind of like the bigger deterrent that I have is that there are some guys I like down there more. Like we talked about Kirk. I think Kirk is kind of the headliner down there. But Munoz is 9,000. I know there's a big gap between 9,000 and 84, but I don't mind CT Pond this week. He's 83. I think I'd probably go Pond over Lee personally. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah. You're not going to bait me into a bet on that one.
No, not a bet, but like I think among the low 8,000 or lowish, mid to low 8,000 guys. I know, I'm breaking my own parameters. Mid to low 8,000 guys. I think I prefer Pond. What?
Can we? Okay. Does that include 86?
Sure.
Then Eric Van Rooyen and Joel Damon for me, and I'm also kind of interested in Austin Smotherman at 81 if I just disregard the chipping.
Okay. I'm not there, but good for you. I'd rather have Pond. So I think that Lee is an option because of what he's done recently, but I prefer some other guys down there for me personally. Let's go back up to the mid-thousand range. Jeez, very low salary. The mid-9,000 range. Talk about Tom Hoagy, because I mentioned him with Kokrak, where I think I like Hoagy more than Kokrak. Let's lay out why. Hoagy 96, but he ranks 3rd in the field in approach the past 50 rounds. I think that alone merits digging in a bit more on him. Hoagy finished 9th at the PGA Championship. That's his 2nd straight top 20 after he was 17th at the AT&T Byron Nelson. And that's despite losing strokes off the tee in both those events. That's mostly due to a lack of distance, which is not a big issue for this week. Despite the seeming course fit, Hoagy has not fared well at Colonial. He has missed 2 straight cuts. He has just 1 finish better than 40th in 5 tries. But his form is better now than it was then. So I think I'm in on Hoagy. You didn't seem like you were as high on him as I am. Where are you at on Hoagy at 96?
Well, high on him as in, what's the comparison?
Like we were listing out, like you liked McNeely more, and I might like Hoagy more.
No, I have Hoagy as an other to consider in my helper on numberFire. 88th percentile irons. He's an accurate driver. He, as Jordan Spieth said, doesn't go away whenever he's in contention, which because they played some sort of, I forget what game it was that they played together, or he heard about. I don't even know if they played it together, which just adds to the mystique.
Like a video game or what?
It was like some sort of card game or something. let's call it poker, but I don't think it was poker. But like,
okay,
Jordan Spieth deduced from how Tom Hoagy played this particular game that he would not go away whenever he was in contention on the PGA Tour, which I absolutely love. Love that.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to do a McNeely versus Hoagy bet?
I like both of them. Don't I mean,
I like McNeely always. I just like Hoagy more.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Cool. Also, by the way, I'm giving you $100 in salary on both of our head-to-head bets this week. Just gonna throw that out there. Just
the man who refuses to take any head-to-head action the other way. You have to call it out whenever it works against you.
Yeah. Duh. Sorry you can't do math, bud. But yeah, of course I'm going to call it out when I'm giving you a free $200 in FanDuel salary.
Love that for you.
Bets. What?
Love that for you.
Do too. I do too. But I think Hoagie's a really good play. I like him a lot. I like this range overall, and I think Hoagie's probably near the top of that list for me. Let's dive into what bookmakers are saying about this event. Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, and Jordan Spieth, they're all co-favorites over at FanDuel Sportsbook. They're all 12-1. Then it dips down to Collin Morikawa at 18-1. Victor Hovland is 19-1. Then there is a tier drop-off down to Will Zalatoris at 24-1. We got Max Homa and Sam Burns 29-1. Tommy Fleetwood, Abraham Answer, and Tony Finau are all 32-1. And then Sung J M rounds at the top group. He is 34-1. Now, odds here are pretty flat, even though we have some legit studs in this field. How do you interpret that? How is it influencing your view of Thomas, Scheffler, et cetera, when they're not pulling away from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I think by lock, we'll end up seeing one or two of these guys be pretty popular. I would think it's Scheffler and JT. The only reason I'm not all over recommending JT this week is because he's got to be
that's
not
an obligation.
Just if I won the PGA like that or at all, I don't think I'd show up and have my A game the next week. So
I don't think I'd show up. I'm shocked he didn't withdraw, honestly. I kept checking because I thought he was going to.
But then I think with the Dallas narrative and Scheffler just being basically, he was the favorite. He was 9.5-1. He's now 12-1. I still think that he'll be very popular. Same with Spieth. So I think it's going to be Spieth and Scheffler ultimately drawing the most popularity, with JT sort of behind, but overall a little bit flatter than we typically see in just a generic PGA Tour event. So that's kind of the feel I'm getting. And so there's not a whole lot of can't miss plays at the top, like the FOMO, because I'm a little bit less worried about Scheffler, and maybe this is just recency bias. And then Scheffler goes out and just does what Scotty Scheffler's been doing. And it's like, okay, yeah, I should have just played Scheffler instead of got cute with Morikawa or Hovland, but a little bit flatter leads me to think that I can sort of pick and choose, treat it a little bit closer to a major toward the top of the field.
How does it influence your view for cash games? Because for tournaments, we're talking a lot about roster rate and stuff like that and popularity. For cash games, I actually think, because I'm a bit worried about JT hangover kind of thing, maybe literally, I'm a bit worried about that. So Scheffler. I don't want to jam him in. Scheffler didn't play the weekend. That could be a boost for him, but I also could just take the discount and go with some other guys Hovland's 11-2, Spieth 11-4. That's not bad either. So where do you settle in for cash games? Is it just Scheffler up there for you?
I mean, if I'm building a head-to-head lineup against you, it's going to be Scheffler's going to be in it. He's the best. He's the highest floor play.
If you're building a head-to-head, we do it every week.
I'm saying if that's the.
Are you trying to erase it from your memory after I beat you by 150 points this past week, or what?
Maybe, but I'm saying if the lineup I'm discussing right now is a head-to-head lineup against you, if I'm going through theoretically building that one out, it's going to include Scheffler. If I'm building most of my tournament lineups, I'm going to look more for Morikawa and Hovland to kick off the lineup, so I get a little bit extra salary and get back up to that second tier of studs that I think has a lot of win equity this week, despite the fact that it might not be as reflected in the sportsbook odds.
I agree. Which golfers' odds have shifted most since things opened yesterday?
Everyone's moved. That's just sort of how it works, because we got a pretty early release, but some notable odds that have shortened. Jordan Spieth 14-12. So that would, I guess, make him a co-favorite with his guy JT and Scheffler. Yeah. That's kind of interesting from a popularity standpoint for DFS. Tony Finau from 37 to 32. Sungjae Im 37 to 34. He could be a bit forgotten. We're talking accuracy, irons. Didn't play last week due to COVID, but Webb Simpson, Chris Kirk, 42 to 36. Kevin Na, 50 to 44. Those are the most notable odds that have shortened.
What about the lengtheners, and what does that mean?
Scheffler from plus 950 to plus 1200 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Will Zalatoris 21 to 24. Sam Burns 26 to 29. Max Homa 24 to 29. When I saw Homa at 24, I was like, that's probably going to go down. But I mean, again, a little more justified than it might seem at first glance. Ricky Fowler 65 to 90, and then Bryson DeChambeau 50 to 100. What I think that means at the top is that Jordan Spieth should be popular. I don't think this is necessarily an indication that Scottie Scheffler will be forgotten. It's just that he was shorter, and now everyone's sort of treating him as sort of equals to JT and Spieth, which is probably fair, I guess, if we're accounting for like a boosted Spieth this week. But
yeah,
again, I think Scheffler, just because JT won a major last week, Scheffler is the best cash game play to me.
That makes sense. Okay. Which lower salary golfers have odds to stand out to you?
Chris Kirk is a big one at 8,700 on FanDuel. He's 36 to 1 to win. That's pretty wild. Sebastian Munoz, 9,000. He's 55 to 1 to win. CT Pond, your guy, 8,300. He's 75 to 1 to win. Then we have a trio at 90 to 1 with Kevin Kisner, Ryan Palmer, and Lucas Herbert. Herbert being 7,600. I didn't track him closely, but I would bet he had the putter going really well last week at the PGA. Russell Knox, Adam Long, David Lipsky, 100 to 1. Eric Van Rooyen and Troy Merritt, 110 to 1.
I'm pretty sure at one point they said Herbert had gained the most strokes of anybody in the field on the greens last week.
That would make sense.
He missed a short one, I think, like later in the day on Sunday, and that probably brought him back to earth a bit. But like, I think at one point he was leading the field in that category. So that's probably part of it. Chris Kirk, 87. Why? Just slipped through the cracks, or what happened there?
I don't make them.
But like, you agree with me that he's under salary, correct? Like, I'm not.
I think everyone does with
okay.
the win odds being where they are.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a phenomenal ball striker. He can get the putter doesn't really spike at the rate you would like it to, but sure. Tee to green, he's one of the best golfers on the PGA Tour. In this field, he's one of the best. I have him 94th percentile, and that includes recency adjustments, but also field strength adjustments. So it's not like he's just doing it against weaker fields. It's just the putter that is not necessarily on for him. He's actually gaining negative 0.19 strokes. So he's losing 0.19 strokes per round over his past 50. He should be losing about 0.29 because his putting from within 15 feet is pretty bad. So okay, that's the question with Kirk. Yeah, but he's played here a ton. So
yeah, for 87, that's fine. I can deal with that for sure. Okay, weather for this week, not as bad as last week. There is still some wind over the weekend, though. On Thursday, wind speeds will increase during the day, but not too much. They'll go from around 7 miles per hour for the first tee times to a peak of around 12 miles per hour in the late afternoon. So a bit of an advantage to the early tee times. And that's actually good because on Friday, winds are stagnant. They'll be closer to 5 miles per hour the entire day. So actually is a slight edge for golfers with early tee times. Thursday, nowhere near the level it was this past weekend, though. Over the weekend, winds will be pretty high, specifically on Sunday, where they'll be hitting around 20 miles per hour. So the course will likely play tougher on the weekend than it does the opening 2 rounds. So keep that in mind, but no big alterations to this week based on weather. So let's dive into our player picks here for the Charles Schwab Challenge. Brandon, in the upper tier, who are you targeting on FanDuel.com this week?
So cash games, it's going to be Scheffler, but also cash games, I'm going to try to include this guy, Victor Hovland. I think I'm just going to plant my flag next to Hovland this week. Hope that everything works out from an around the green standpoint. Hope that the ball striking is there from Hovland. I think we're just getting a discount on him at 11-2. It's a pretty flat week with the salaries, and I would say if you go, golfer by golfer at the top of the field, the name that jumps out least from a great finishing current form standpoint would be Hovland. And I think that should lead to his being a little bit lower rostered than he deserves to be. He's been between 18th and 41st in his past 4 stroke play events. The ball striking, definitely not the issue. It's just been the around the green play. And if we can de-emphasize that this week, it is great for Hovland, who's also due for putting regression. So it's hard to find a reason for me not to like Hovland. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If he is ruined once again by his around the green play, that honestly just means that he wasn't hitting it well enough to play at his peak anyway. And that's just kind of how that works.
Yeah, I think the Hovland makes a lot of sense. I have a hard time ranking him versus Morikawa. I think they're both good options. Probably would give a slight edge to Hovland, but it's close. Up here, I'm going to go Jordan Spieth as my top high salary guy because I'm not a course history guy at all. But I do think it's impactful if someone does well at a course regardless of their form, and Spieth has that here. And the form, again, is not bad. He won the RBC Heritage. He was runner-up to the Byron Nelson, 34th at the PGA. His issues off the tee don't matter as much here, and his driving has been better of late, honestly, as well. Plus, the irons have looked really nice. Not just the past 3, but he had some good weeks at the Valero, Pebble Beach as well. Despite some issues recently, Spieth does still rank 33rd in bentgrass putting the past 50 rounds. So I feel pretty good about him at 11-4. I didn't go into this week expecting that, but the more I dug into him, the more I liked Spieth. So that's where I wind up. A rank for me, after actually talking to me about Morikawa first as your second high salary guy, then a rank for me, Morikawa, Hovland, and Spieth.
Yeah, we'll talk about someone who may or may not be a high salaried or a mid salary golfer in a second. That was my initial high salary golfer, but I just want to make sure that I'm not too low on Morikawa. I think if I'm picking 2 guys for tournaments and I'm building a lineup without Scotty Scheffler in it, I'm going to build around Victor Hovland and Colin Morikawa. We're looking at a week where, again, Morikawa hasn't sort of done anything for us lately, but at his peak, he's obviously one of the best golfers on the planet. And the one guy whose spike week stat, if you combine tee to green and putting, that is just off the charts is JT. So if you say he's going to maybe come back to earth a little bit, then Morikawa is tied with Scheffler and actually Max Homa in terms of my weighted spike weeks. So for me, I'm going to go pretty hard at Morikawa and Hovland in my tournament lineups, make that be the duo for this week. I don't really think I even have to justify it past that.
I don't either. So let's talk here about Daniel Berger. We have not discussed yet. Berger is not long, but he is accurate, and he should fit the course pretty well. Berger ranks 6th in good drives gained. He is 1st in approach, 19th around the green, 35th in bentgrass putting. That's why it's not a surprise that Berger won here back in 2020. Berger was awful at the PGA Championship, a nightmare, but he was 21st at the RBC Heritage just a week before that. I think that allows me to overlook the 1 week blip at a tough course and use Berger here at 10-7. You're making faces. Do you now hate Daniel Berger?
It's hard not to. I don't hate him, obviously. But boy, I like the setup for Berger. His irons weren't there. His putter was terrible last week, which is kind of hard to do on those slower greens. But he lost 7.3 strokes putting last week. That is wild. His splits now over the past 50 rounds look pretty bad. That's only 2 rounds from the PGA though, so because he missed the cut by a lot. So I initially highlighted Berger. I'm gonna have a hard time going back there, which goes against all of the research I've done, over the past week.
You're gonna regret it.
I might, but I don't think that I can play Daniel Berger this week.
Does the fact that he doesn't play very often influence that for you? Like the fact that if it's, let's say it's a 3 event sample across 4 weeks and a guy has a 1 week blip. Do you view that differently if it's a 1 week blip or that's the only event he's played in the past month?
I mean, yeah, it's anecdotal, but with Berger, I always view him, I think, as a better putter than he is. And he's not So that's a perception that doesn't quite match up. He doesn't get hot with the putter as often as you would like. And Daniel Berger, as someone who tries to model golf and figure out upside and win probability, I'm always too high on Daniel Berger because his floor he's very consistent. He's one of the most consistent round-around scoring golfers that we have on the PGA Tour, but he never really flashes with the putter. And so if I'm looking just for some upside, I think I need to kind of make Daniel Berger be someone I'm not as eager to play as I have been historically. Would you be interested in a Max Homa versus Daniel Berger head-to-head? I know you're eating $100 in salary here, but
no.
Okay.
I like Homa, but I like Berger too. So,
is there anyone we don't like at the top of the field?
Let me look. Sungjae, I'm worried about just from like a fitness perspective because like this might be like a other sport brain, but like a lot of guys have struggled after they've like tested positive. I worry a bit about that, so that's a slight concern for me. Zalatoris has a little bit of JT to him where like he was just in like this high intensity situation, had to remain laser focused for a very long time. That could have an effect. So
I with Zalatoris, I mean, I could see this with JT too, but with Zalatoris, I could see like he goes out, he's like lingering near the cut line, and he just sort of doesn't have.
So he could win by 3 strokes, or he could miss a cut by 3 strokes, and neither would surprise me.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like that. I talk about this with like first round or first quarter football totals. Like sometimes it just feels like it's going to go. You're going to see the CBS like logo, and it's going to be like 3-0. It's like that's how that game's going. I could see Zalatoris 3 shots ahead through 1, or just like
3 shots over through 1 hole.
Yeah.
One or the other. There's no in between. So that's where I'm at. Basically, it's just it lingers for me. Let's move to the mid range, and I think that I'm okay putting Sam Burns in the mid range personally because I am okay with the balanced approach. In part because I like that high 10,000 range. So we both have Sam Burns our top mid range guy. That's the reason he's 10-2. So like typically we try to go 10,000 or lower. That's why I justified Sam Burns. But I think the overall takeaway is we both like him. So what do you like about Burns this week?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, why I put Morikawa there instead of Burns, because I had Burns in my high salary play. Burns is 12th in salary. That's again, it's 10-2, but he's also 12th. Or you're trying to make him say like he's a mid range play. So like that's kind of the discussion we're having. But if you can give me Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, and Sam Burns in a lineup, I will take that. That's pretty spicy. I mean, you can substitute any other 2 names.
I have 2 out of 3 in my current default lineup.
But yeah, I mean, Burns, he's such a good putter that I think people don't really realize that some of the bigger hitters, some of the better ball strikers can also be really good putters. And so he's one of the guys who does fit that more than, the generic sort of elite ball striker. Like I love Victor Hovland. He is a better tee to green player than Sam Burns, but he's not nearly the putter that Sam Burns is. So for 10-2, Sam Burns, pretty much a lock in a lot of my lineups this week.
I think he's undersalaried. He fits the approach I want for this week. Like you said, he's a good putter. He does other stuff really well. So I feel great about Sam Burns, honestly, and have no real qualms about him. So I feel I'll just put him as my top mid-salary guy. He will be in our head-to-head that I've currently built, and I feel very good about that.
Be a 5v5 at best.
4v4. Just based on the way you've been talking, it's going to be a 4v4.
With Hovland?
Hovland, probably Kirk, so 3v3.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, oh well. Who else he put in there? Who else do you like in the mid-range here?
I don't know if he's quite a no-qualm play, but maybe that's our new thing.
An NQP?
Yeah. But Maverick McNeely, I like him a lot. Field average and accuracy, but that works. 73rd percentile adjusted ball striking in this field over the past year. Putts well, 73rd percentile. And expected putting, even if you remove, he's a good lag play. He's been good with the longer putts, but if you remove that, still expected to be a good putter. So you'll like that. And 3 straight made cuts here while gaining off the tee with approach and with putting in each. Again, don't care so much about the around the green play. So it's hard for me to talk myself out of McNeely for this week.
I think McNeely is a solid option. I prefer, I think, Hoagy over him. We do the head-to-head bet, and I'll stick with that. So I do like Hoagy more. Potentially Kokrak too, but McNeely is not someone I'll ever talk people out of.
What about Fleetwood?
What's that?
Fleetwood. Is he?
Fleetwood as well. Yeah. I like Fleetwood more too. But McNeely is fine. We haven't talked about the low 9,000 range yet. And it's probably not a range I'll be in all that often. But if I am down here, I do want to talk about Gary Woodland briefly because he's been inconsistent and that can be bad. But I'm okay with it when it comes with upside. And that's been the case for Woodland. Since January 1st, Woodland has missed 5 of 12 cuts, which is bad. But he's also had 3 top 10s in that time, including a pair of top 5s. Those were back in February and March. But his 8th was at the Valero in April. He played well at the Mexico Open and the PGA Championship too. Woodland is 21st in approach, 34th in good drives gained, 24th in bentgrass putting. So we hadn't talked about him yet, but I actually do like Gary Woodland at 93. What do you think about him for this week?
Nothing against him so much as it is. I don't think I'll be in the salary. I either need to. I think I need to save a little bit more so that I can get back up to like a Sam Burns or a McNeely or I guess now a Tommy Fleetwood. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if 9,300 does enough for me.
Okay, let's move down to the value range. Who stands out to you there?
I'm assuming, yeah, we both have Chris Kirk. He's just like I won't say a free space, but because there's no such thing in PGA DFS, but it's a huge mismatch with the odds and the salary. T5 at the PGA Championship last week, won here in 2015, so he was bound to be bet down from wherever he was. Just a great case to be made to 88th percentile ball striker. Not good around the greens, but is accurate, and that's basically the recipe this week.
I like Chris Kirk too. He's my top value play. He is in my head-to-head against you. I will use him a lot in tournaments. I have no reservations. He's an NQP for sure. I mean, like, he's not perfect. He's not imperfect, but relative to his salary, NQP.
Yeah, sure. NQP. Yeah, NQP status, as we all know.
Well-established rules here on the Heat Check. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all salary.
It counts for salary. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Who else do you like here in the value range?
Like a lot of names that are sort of coin flips that I don't really have a firm take, but I think Eric Van Rooyen is someone I would throw in that mix toward the top. He's someone who I'm bumping up because I'm bumping down the importance of around the green play. If you take that out and look at strokes gained, so off the tee approach and putting, I'm in the 87th percentile over the past year, accounting for recency and field strength. And again, whenever you get to a week where it says the chipping is not as important and it ends up like that someone lost too many strokes around the green, it's because they weren't maximizing on their ball striking potential. And the reason that you would play Eric Van Rooyen is for the ball striking potential. So,
yeah, I think EVR works for sure. The guy I like a little bit more than him, though, and it is $400 higher, so keep that in mind. But I do like Sebastian Munoz a lot. We've not talked about him too much yet. Munoz typically a steady but not a high upside guy, but I think going to a non-distance course should help him in the upside department. Munoz, 60th in the field in distance, but he's 35th in fairways gained, 18th in good drives gained, so he can definitely place it where he needs to. The approach has been very good recently. Munoz has gained at least 3 on approach in 5 of his past 10 events, including at the PGA Championship. Munoz just seems like someone whose upside will get a jolt at this type of course, and his floor is already good. I do want ceiling out of guys in this range, and I think that Munoz at this course specifically will have that. So I like Munoz a lot. He's typically more your guy, though. So what are your thoughts on Sebastian Munoz this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Munoz can light it up. Always a threat for first round leader or just low round of the day with sort of what his game is. Good tee to green spike numbers. I think North Texas guy for college. Yeah, North Texas. So you got that angle. Nothing wrong with Munoz. T3 here before too. I think he went cut T3.
Can you guess North Texas's mascot?
I think they're the Mean Green.
Wow. I thought I could get you there.
I think you've done that before.
Honestly. Have I?
I think so.
Upsetting. Deeply upsetting.
I remember from like NCAA football or one of the college basketball games back in the day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, win picks for this week. I've got one who is very long. We don't typically do long shots, but I think he's undervalued in the betting market. Who do you have for your win picks this week?
Well, you know the one, Victor Hovland.
Oh yeah, Hovland's penciled in for you. Okay.
And now that Sam Burns is down to 29, I'm going Sam Burns, and I'm not really going to feel bad about it.
Okay. So you have Sam Burns and Victor Hovland. For one of mine, I kind of want to just like do this out of like defiance now because I'm so offended at how rude you were to him. And I'm going to do it. Daniel Berger, 41 to 1. Is
that the long shot?
No.
Okay.
Berger is always a favorite in my heart. So Berger 41 to 1. I think last week was just a bad week for him. I expect to bounce back this week. Good course fit for him. So Berger is my first one. The long shot is a name we have not said this entire podcast.
Oh, but I love when you do this.
Well, it's because I think he's probably oversalaried but underpriced in the betting markets. Can you guess who I'm talking about here?
Oversalaried, but okay. It's not. I know it wouldn't be Bryson.
No.
Oversalaried. I don't know. No, Billy Horschel.
No. Why would I bet Billy Horschel?
I don't know. Mito.
No. So, not good off the tee.
Patrick Reed.
No. Not good off the tee. Pretty good in a lot of other elements of his game, though. He can.
Tringale?
Yeah, buddy.
Imagine
Cam Tringale.
Imagine betting Cam Tringale instead of Bryson.
I can. Cam Tringale, not good off the tee, but
hey,
good at good drives gained. He ranks 23rd there, 19th in approach, 37th around the green, 5th in bent grass putting. His like true strokes gain numbers aren't good recently, but that's still being dragged down by the Players and the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Those two events, he was bad. But since then, he's had a 12th at the RBC Heritage. He was pretty decent at the Zurich. Cam Tringale, 100 to 1 to win this week. But hey, 1% is all we need. And I think we get that with Cam Tringale.
Look, I mean, if you hit a 100 to 1 play in this, it's going to be hard to overcome.
I'm not even trying to do it for that perspective. I just think that he's underpriced in the betting markets.
Okay.
Take it to the bank. Actually, please don't. There's no such thing as a lock. But Cam Tringale, I think. What do your Sims have him at?
0.8%.
Close. That's pretty close for a long shot.
It is, but a lot of long shots are about that.
No, they're not.
It's usually the favorites who are awful value, and then the long shots are generally even.
So I obliterate you in the bobble hat this past week. I'm about to win in the win picks this week alone.
I'll give you this. I mentioned Daniel Berger. Always hard to model. My Sims still think he's a solid betting value.
What if Berger and Tringale are co-winners? Throwing that out there too. They call the event after 6 holes in the final day due to weather because it's too windy. Tringale and Berger both co-leaders, and like, now we can't play Monday. We got to do other stuff. It's Memorial Day weekend almost. So,
if anyone made it past my slurring of words and inability to speak, they've definitely turned it off by now.
Well, Eric Broxton is still watching. He says that he's 8% as well. So, Eric, congratulations to you. You and Cam Tringale, both winners for this week. That is all that we have here for the Charles Schwab Challenge from a DFS and guaranteed winners perspective with Cam Tringale, maybe Daniel Berger. But next week, I got to fly solo because you're abandoning me to go do fun things like a vacation. Rude. But where are you going, out of curiosity?
Colorado.
Where are we going? Because I'd like to trip with you, you know?
I'm going to Colorado. We're doing a bunch of national parks, my wife and I, and we'll be sleeping in the car a lot. And it'll be a good time.
Well, when I show up, just you've been warned. That'll happen. But I will still be here next week to do PGA for, the Memorial. Yeah, moral. Next week. So we will still have a PGA podcast, just me by myself, but should be a whole lot of fun to get that as it goes up and to get every podcast here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed as it is posted. Go to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you or want to check out all your tweets while you're on vacation, where can they find you there?
I likely will not have cell phone service for most of the trip.
You tweet all the time on vacation. I know you.
And I tweet a lot to begin with. So,
correct.
But you could find me on Twitter at Gadula13, GDULA13.
I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today, whether it be on YouTube, or on the podcast feed. We appreciate all of you. Good luck to you this week. Let's go Tringali. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.